I therefore call on Government Orders of the Day number 1.
Government Notice of Motion number 2.
Mr Speaker.
I call the Honourable Minister Jerry Brown.
Mr Speaker, I move that pursuant to Section 131B of the Electoral Act 1993, a vacancy in Epsom Electoral District having arisen and the House having been informed that a general election is to be held within 6 months of the occurrence of the vacancy, no writ be issued for the election of a Member of Parliament for that electoral district to supply the vacancy occasioned by the resignation of the Honourable John Archibald Banks. Mr Speaker, what an irony it is that we are here today debating and as a House most likely agreeing that there should be no by-election in the Epsom electorate. A by-election that is caused by the resignation of the Honourable John Archibald Banks, subsequent to the findings of the court that his memory of donations around an election campaign were, to say the least, hazy. Mr Speaker, I'll speak more of John Archibald Banks in a few minutes, but the irony is that we are debating this today when there are so many rumours swirling about undeclared donations by the Labor Party. Donations that can total, we believe, if all is to be revealed, some tens of thousands of dollars. Today we have the allegation out there that there is a $15,000 donation that has been made to the Labor Party and not declared. And what we hear is that they have no record of it. They have no memory of it. There is no possibility that the donation was made. Well, more to come on that. But the real point here is that the Honourable David Cunliffe used those same set of excuses in the last couple of days to... Well, point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, I'm merely pointing out that the House has dealt with matters today.
Order, order, order. Members on my left have been here a long time and they know the standing orders that during a point of order it is to be put terse, but at the same time there is to be no interjections whatsoever. I call the Honourable Minister Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, I was in the middle of a point of order, I believe.
Yes, you were.
Well, it is that you were giving the well-known Ross Robinson signal for come back to the topic. And I was accepting that you were actually at a wide stage at that point. I assume that wasn't to get me in scope of your view, but it was in fact...
order!
I think worth recognising that... Many of the
is it a point of order?
Yes, I'm in the middle of it.
Thank you. Now, look, can I just say to the honourable members on my left, who I've known for many years, you are well versed in standing orders.
The floor.
All members are well versed in standing orders. I call the Honourable Jerry Brown.
To continue my point of order, Chair.
Continue your point of order.
My point of order is that the matters I was discussing, that you were suggesting might be slightly out of scope, are incredibly relevant to the circumstances that have caused the House to have this debate today. And I think it's not unreasonable that they are, at least in passing, rehearsed.
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, I'm standing up to agree with the member, but to say that one comments on Speaker's rulings, even if they are descriptions of width, is something that you shouldn't be doing in a point of order. So if you're giving the member signals and making rulings in a sign language way, then it would be most disorderly for the member to comment on it by way of point of order.
The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
It's just that I'm used to all sorts of hand signals and other gestures from the Labor Party.
All right, okay. That's not a point of order. That can actually lead to disorder. The Honourable Member Tracy Martin. Order. We have a point of order on the floor.
Sorry, just speaking to the point of order, sir, a piece of clarification. Mr Brownlee is saying that the debate should be wide because the Labor Party, there's some stuff in the paper, but my understanding this debate is because Mr Banks has been found guilty of fraud. So I don't understand how there's this wide debate when actually it's about a person has resigned because they've been found guilty of fraud.
Well, that's almost the issue. Sorry, the issue is actually sub judice. So members have to be careful what they say in this debate because it can lead to disorder. And I just ask members to be conscious of that, for when we throw mud, we lose ground. I call the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
So I know, only because you were calling the member. Sir, it is important that we get the parameters of this right, but the fact that the member has been found guilty of fraud, of electoral fraud, is not sub judice. That is a matter of fact and recorded by the court.
Order. That it is, Mr Mallard, but it is still sub judice in the sense that there has been no sentence as yet. So I'm just cautioning members that we need to be careful how we couch this debate. Point of order.
I hear that and I don't disagree with that ruling, but we are able to say things about the Honourable John Banks, who is no longer a member, and the protections that exist for members do not exist for former members.
Well, can I just say that that matters that are sub judice are subject to the discretion of the Speaker, and members are to be cautioned as to the use of parliamentary privilege to circumvent the judicial process, as it can undermine public confidence when standards falter or appear to falter. We live in a democracy, and while we enjoy freedom of speech, it comes with responsibility to the common good. So I'm just cautioning members about the issue. I call the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Thank you for your very wise words, Mr Speaker. I appreciate them. Because the point is that no doubt when other members stand up this afternoon, they're going to engage in some sort of reasonably severe character assassination on their Honourable John Archibald Banks. And I'm making the point quite simply that while he was in fact dragged into the courts and over a local body electoral issue, and while it was pointed out to him that his recollections of events were not found to be as the court would like them, we also have a situation here in this Parliament right now where there are allegations about donations to a political party, the Labor Party, tens of thousands of donations from a Mr Bill Doha Liu. And, Mr Speaker, we've got a party that knows that all of that is there, knows all that's there, have got a leader now who's been found out as someone who is at least, to say the very least, reckless with the truth, and they're going to put the boot into John Banks. Well, Mr Speaker, Mr Banks did the right thing. He resigned from Parliament. He has not been convicted, and he's resigned from Parliament. He did not have to. He has not at this point been convicted. But he is an honourable man. He's a friend of mine, and he will remain that. Mr Speaker, the point that is made in this debate is about setting aside the need for a very, very expensive by-election. And it could be simply made by everyone agreeing in one or two sentences that spending up to $1 million on a by-election so close to a general election would be a waste of time. But I know that you're going to get the fake sanctimony from the other side of the House as they all roll out trying to protect a beleaguered and besieged leader who has got a huge job to convince anybody that anything he says is worth listening to, let alone believing, that we're going to see a character assassination of John Banks. And I'm wanting to preempt that, sir, by making it clear that it is not appropriate to come into this House and for the pot to call the kettle black, which is effectively what I'm sure we're going to see this afternoon. Now, I'm aware that Grant Robertson, the shadow leader of the House, has said, well, all bets are off, this is an unlimited debate, and so we're just going to go at it hard, and the government will be here all the way to the 31st of July debating this particular motion. Well, I want to make the point, Mr Speaker, that that's not going to happen, because there is no confidence on that side of the House in the situation that Mr Cunliffe finds himself in today. There is no comfort in the House over the undisclosed donations, and there is no acceptance that there is some sort of a blunder inside the Labor Party that has meant that a donation that should have been recorded, should have been made available to the Electoral Commission, has not been declared. So, Mr Speaker, I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see the positions that are taken today by our opponents. Mr Speaker, we don't think an election is a good idea at this point, because it could end up being either on the Saturday of the general election or the Saturday before, or even worse, sir, if the days are extrapolated, to the weekend after the general election, when the public would be asked to vote for a member for a parliament that no longer exists. In any event, on the 14th of August, this parliament ceases to exist, so unless that by-election were held before that date, everyone would be trotting off to the polls to vote for someone for a parliament that no longer exists. So I think there is, in actual fact, quite a hole in the electoral law that deals with all of these circumstances. I don't think the clauses in the Electoral Act have actually got us to a point where we can... the member over there, Mr Peters, asked what happened. Mr Peters is one of those members in the House probably more singly responsible for the rewrite of electoral law than anybody else here. And I say that not because he's been here forever, but simply because of his other interactions at various times. So, Mr Speaker, we are really having a debate because the law requires us to, but it is a nonsense, because there is no way that someone could be elected to sit in Parliament for a Parliament that no longer exists. So I just look forward to the contributions from those over there who are amassing, circling the wagons around David Cunliffe. I note that as the Leader of the Opposition, who would normally have something to say about the setting aside of a by-election, that's unlikely this afternoon, and that is largely because of the contradiction in circumstances that we find here today. So, a member having gone all the way through the courts, being found to have not appropriately declared donations, against a member today found to have misled the media and all sorts of other people over his knowledge of Dong Hua Lu. And it gets worse than that. I'll read from his letter in a minute. Some of the Labor Party members should do it too. And also not prepared to deal or not acknowledge that there was at least one, and we know more, donations from Dong Hua Lu to the Labor Party. And if anybody's under any doubt about whether or not it's fair for Mr Cunliffe to say, I had a brain fade, I don't remember, well, this letter...
point of order, Honourable Member. Russell Norman.
This is a pretty broad debate that we're engaged in here, but really David Cunliffe is not the subject of the debate under any interpretation of standing orders.
This is a robust debate, a robust parliament, and it's within standing orders. The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
So here we are, Mr Speaker, across the House, a little bit of interplay there, saying that my comments have so upset the Labor Party that they're going to make this a rough one. Well, let's see how good they are. Because in the end, they're on the back foot big time. Mr Cunliffe, in his letter, said it would be very helpful to Mr Lu to be advised, in other words, for him to be advised, of an estimated period of time in which he could expect a decision. Mr Speaker, that is the sort of letter that you write if the person who's being written about is well known to you, sir. And so any suggestion that it was some sort of formal thing is absolute rubbish. It is going to be interesting to see how the Labor Party position this afternoon. I think, sir, there are matters that they will be aware of that are going to come to light in the next few days that I think is going to be, to say the least, listening. And while, Mr Speaker, the Labor Party thinks that we might have come down the Yangtze River on a cabbage boat, let me suggest, sir, that there are far more plush vessels that have travelled down the Yangtze River than a cabbage boat, and we'll see in the next couple of days just who is on board.
Mr Speaker.
As a point of I call the Honourable David Parker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.